Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. Yes, it's an evening segment with my good friends, not singular, plural. I did learn something at school, Terry. Yeah, hopefully. James Rowe, and of course, Eltel, the original Godfather. We've got some. We're going to be talking about Arsenal. Yeah, we're just going to roll with it and see how it goes. But it won't be more than an hour show anyway. But we shall see you on this other side of this music intro. Oh, I'm loving it. Yes. Welcome back to Cannon for the channel for. I almost forgot my lines then. The channel for Arsenal fans all over this world, and it's the evening segment on a Monday evening over here. It's just a few minutes after 12 5:30 5:30, and we're gonna be rolling with the punches, yeah, like Mikel Arteta's rolling with the punches from the pack media. Make sure you subscribe to Cannon for TV, hit the bell notification button so you can receive all the latest news right here on this wonderful channel. Guys, Terry, what's been going on?
Well, I'm afraid our media has been ripping into Arteta again, and I know the man's under pressure, and it's very easy to spot that, and he's obviously been annoyed by people quoting statistics and the number of crosses we're putting in. So just for the crack, he decided to throw a few statistics into it. He definitely lost me halfway through. and then he proceeded to say, "Well, it doesn't mean anything anyway." So unfortunately, the media are always looking for an angle and a story,
Yeah.
and they've blown it out of all proportion. My biggest worry is that he's feeling under pressure. And I was looking at I obviously watched the game the other day. For the last, say, 10 minutes or so, we really put them under pressure. Okay, they were happy to sit back. But he can't complain about the way we sort of went at it then. But for the first part, certainly the first half, we were strolling around. And I did say to people before in one of these podcasts, just watch when a player hasn't got the ball and see if they're moving into a position, if you like, a line of sight of the guy that has the ball, or a passing lane, I think it's called. And there were so many of them not doing that. And I don't believe in this nonsense about he's lost the dressing room, because dressing rooms are always full of factions. But you don't notice that when a team is winning. But when a team is losing, like we are, game after game, then all those things do rear their ugly heads. But I'm really disappointed with some of those players. Because they aren't giving their best for him. You can see it. It's pretty obvious. Williams running at 3/4 pace. Pepe's not interested, and it runs through quite a lot of the team. There are some obvious exceptions, and we all know that there are people like Saka and Tierney who are giving it everything. But you can't win a Premier League match without your team running hard and working hard. I thought Maitland-Niles played well, and I still would love to see him in midfield. But yeah, I mean, I feel just sorry for him with all this nonsense of numbers, and I'm afraid it's a sign of the pressure that he feels, that he's kind of bitten back a bit, and he's only human, and he's going to bite back a bit because the man is under pressure.
Well, yeah. James, good evening, James.
Evening, guys. Evening. Good to see you both again. If I can just touch on what Terry said about the media. I myself have more than 4.5 years experience now interviewing professional players and managers. And everything that I've ever published with any player at any standard anywhere in the world is always the truth and is always on point, because you're not looking for a story. All you're trying to do is you're trying to tell the truth about a journey that a player has been on, the journey that a manager has been on, their reflection in terms of what they've done at different times of their career, especially younger players that have been released from top clubs, how it makes them feel, and then the journey that they're on as well. So I think at the top end as well, I don't know if they think that some of them are a little bit untouchable, but they can ask what they want. But I think you've got to look past statistics at certain times. You know, the fact remains that Arteta does not have sufficient experience to fall back on. And Arsenal knew that when they appointed him. That if times get tough, then he has no sufficient experience to fall back on. That's a fact. And if you look at Chris Wilder, for example, you know, he was an equaliser by Brighton yesterday. Torrid time for Sheffield United at the moment. But what's keeping Wilder going, I think, is the fact that he can fall back on that experience at Oxford. He can fall back on that experience at Northampton Town. And although it's not the same level, it's the same game that they're playing in terms of the end goal and the end result. So, yeah, tough times for Arsenal at the minute. But I watched the game last Saturday, and the thing that really stood out for me, and Terry touched on it just then, is the body language. I mean, for body language, when that Yerry Mina goal goes in, if you look at David Luiz's face, you know, literally in his facial expression, giving the blame to a fellow Arsenal defender. This is a man who's played for Paris Saint-Germain. This is a man who's played for Benfica. This is a man who played for Chelsea and also been capped by Brazil on many occasions. You know, it's extremely unprofessional. You know, extremely, extremely unprofessional. And I was looking last night at our fixtures, and we've got fixtures up until including Crystal Palace on, I believe, the 12th of January. But after that, we have literally 5 weeks of fixtures, which include the likes of Manchester City, Leeds United, Wolves away, Aston Villa away, Leicester away. And I was looking at that block and I was thinking, I can't really see where the wins are going to come from there. And once you're down there, as you know, some things don't always go your way. And I've seen some reports as well of Arsenal buying in January to get ourselves out of a hole. Well, the fact remains that there are still 34 players on the books. So first and foremost, before we do anything, we have to offload players before we can buy players. But unfortunately, you know, the penny will drop far too late for many. You know, I do find it very strange how a lot of Arsenal younger fans, it's who can we buy? Who can we buy? Who can we buy? I interviewed a player today, Connor Kirby, who plays for Harrogate Town. And he was telling me about coming through the youth setup at Sheffield Wednesday, debuting for Sheffield Wednesday, playing championship football, and how proud he was, especially having worked so hard as a scholar, to sign professional forms with Sheffield Wednesday. And you think of the younger players at Arsenal, how hard they've all worked. And we have particularly a younger generation of fans that don't think about these things. All they're considering is who can we buy, who can we buy, who can we buy, when the squad is already completely overbloated.
Terry, where do we go from here? Where does Arteta go from here? He's under immense amount of pressure. Where does he go from here?
I think to touch on what James was saying, I know that Arteta says he has the sort of backing, the kiss of death from the board, but I do think they aren't going to be sacking him anytime soon. But we haven't sold well and we haven't bought well, and the scouting system is in disarray. We seem to have sacked the Michelin Tats and all the scouts that we had. And Stat DNA wasn't good enough for us. And then we went with agents, especially Jurabtrian. And it seems to me, I was looking at a guy called Swiss Ramble, does some really, if people haven't seen it, Swiss Ramble is on Twitter, and he does all the number crunching for the Premier League and the Championship. And he does it each club and so on. And we haven't been a good selling club. We don't sell players and make big profits, and we've spent in the last 5 years, I think it is, around about the same. I think we spent 329 million pounds on players, around about the same as Liverpool. And you think of how they've sold well. They sold Coutinho for a king's ransom and so on, and we haven't sold well. And hence we seem to be playing catch up all the time. And we can see even at the most recent transfer window, we seem to bring in players like Willian who really aren't up to scratch. I think motivationally they've lost it, because they've won everything. They've won all the big trophies in the game, and he didn't want to stay at Chelsea because he wanted an extra year on his contract. So what was he looking for? Money. And the moment their main goal is to earn more money, well, I personally wouldn't be signing that kind of player, because you'll get a lot more from a player that really wants to play for Arsenal.
James, what do you foresee happening in a transfer window, dare I say it? Do you think Arsenal will be buying players, or you think they'll put an embargo on that and sell and reduce the wage bill and get rid of players?
Well, if they're sensible, they'll do the second option, as you noticed, as you just put forward there. If they're sensible, and I'm not trying to be the prophet of doom or anything, but you say about over bloating the wage bill even further. Let's just say that Arsenal do buy in January, and we are a championship team in May. Those wages are not sustainable. Those wages are not sustainable. I think even if we stay in the Premier League. But people are not thinking about these things, and it's really disconcerting how an entire generation is just buy. What about player welfare? You look at yesterday. Leicester went to Tottenham and won. Fofana was Saliba's partner for St Etienne last year. Together they reached the French Cup final. Together they made some great performances together. Fofana didn't look out of place in the Leicester defence yesterday, playing Premier League football. His partner is also signed by a Premier League club, only plays for the under-23s, doesn't really play full stop. And I think some Arsenal fans, we've got to look past the buy, and the likes and the retweets and the clout. What about player welfare? As I said, Arsenal have got Mark McGuinness and Daniel Ballard doing exceptionally well on loan. You would like to think that the performances of both in particular would see them drafted into the first team squad, obviously next season with a bit of luck. But if you're buying, then their pathway is completely blocked. So their promising performances that they're currently doing for Blackpool and Ipswich will all be in vain if they want to play for Arsenal. And we've got to start to swallow our pride a little bit and say no. If the fans are hell-bent on buying, we've got to say no. Our Premier League status is bordering on precarious at the moment. So we've got to trim the wage bill, we've got to sell, and we've got to make what could be seen as unpopular decisions. But I don't know if they've got the heart and the actual guts to do something like that. I actually think that they will bumble along until it's far too late, because you forget as well. Players can leave the club, agents can leave the club, directors can leave the club, fans can never leave the club. And obviously Terry is an elder statesman. Both are elder statesmen and have seen Arsenal before I started supporting them from the 89 season onwards, and my first formative season being that of 1990 and 1991. This club has never been relegated, but you wonder what would happen to this club if it was relegated. You're talking about one of the three biggest clubs in English football. There are only two clubs in English football bigger than what we are, and that's Manchester United and Liverpool. And then it's us. We've won 13 league titles. We've won 14 FA Cups. We've won in Europe as well. We've won 2 League Cups, but we haven't won the league for 16 years. And to be talking about people hell-bent on Champions League football, we are now talking about preserving our Premier League status. I was lambasted by all and sundry when I said that Arsenal would finish 7th this year. I won't repeat some of the abuse that I received. If we were to finish 7th now, everyone would bite their hand off to be able to do it. But it's a long old season. But the club never learn, Alex. The club never learn. 55 employees made redundant, and then the news of Aubameyang coming out at £400,000 a week. Thomas Partey, in my opinion, it was an unnecessary signing, £260,000 a week. Willian, £220,000 a week, and he signed a 3-year deal. I don't know if these players have got release clause should Arsenal get relegated, but you wonder if they don't have them, and you wonder what will happen. And the only good thing to come out of this is that hopefully someone somewhere along the line will have the nous and the guts and the courage to start playing the kids, because you know, at the end of the day, we might not have nothing to lose, but it's just a meteoric slide from the ambitions that we held to what we're doing now, where we appear to be, as a club, literally going through the motions both on and off the pitch.
Terry, before I go into the live chat, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like King Canute on the live chat trying to bat off all this negativity. Arteta out. And I'm saying Arteta in. But can you envisage what would happen if Arsenal did the unthinkable and sacked Mikel Arteta? What realistically, a new manager, what could he really change if he was to come and manage Arsenal?
I'm going to say now, I don't think they actually will sack him, because they know that if they get a top manager in, he is going to be asking for a transfer kitty, which doesn't exist. So I think they'll bite the bullet and keep Arteta there. I think, as James said, I think Arteta's going to be a great manager, but he hasn't done the sort of hard yard. And in my job, I often meet people like that want to run before they can walk. And I say to them, go in and do the hard yard year after year, and then you're ready for the sort of big job. And it's noticeable that Ancelotti went to Everton around about the same time as Arteta went to us, and with the same kind of resources as he's got at Everton as we have. He's done wonderfully well, really, really well. So I don't think they'll get rid of Arteta, because they can't. They actually, he was the cheapest option of all the people we were supposed to be looking at, and so it would be actually cheaper for them to keep him and give him some money that he can go and spend. But as James says, it's not all about money, and we don't actually seem to have anybody who's very good at selling players. Sort of, because that's a whole skill in itself. Sell while the player is looking good, not while, as we have at the moment, we've got some players that are looking like rats that are leaving a sinking ship. Unfortunately, to coin a phrase. And I do think it's poisonous to have Ozil still on the sort of wage bill and have him going to training. And he's got obviously mates in the club. They weren't, without raking over the past, we were the only club, I believe, that managed to convince most of the players to take a 20% wage cut. That must have bitten deeply with guys that are only playing for the money. They wouldn't have liked that. And so you've got all this backstory going on and disgruntlement. Now, that wouldn't disgruntle somebody who loves playing for Arsenal, because they're even the lowest paid are royally paid, you know. But for these rich guys, that will be a sort of disgruntlement. I think there's lots of other stuff going on that we can only hint at. But rather than get into that gossip mongering, I wouldn't say necessarily it's a split. It's. I was going to say it is a split dressing room. I wouldn't say they're anti Arteta to his face, but it's split, and you won't get much out of rich kids who are only there for self-aggrandizement, and you will get a lot out of the sort of young kids. We all can remember back to when Tony Adams came through and Rocky Rocastle and that generation. And of course, Arteta's worried that if he starts playing the kids, he's played his final card, because he's got no way back after that. If he starts dropping the really big name players, then he's got to rely on the kids. Having said that, as James was saying a bit earlier, there's one thing you must never do in any job, which is when something goes wrong, make it obvious that you're blaming someone else. And he did it in front of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people watching it online and so on. And Luis should not do that. I would have dropped him. I would have taken him off straight away, and I will be dropping him, and I will be selling off Ozil Just get him off the wage bill, get him out of coming in for training, because obviously he's got to turn up. Otherwise, they'll say, we aren't going to pay you. So he's turning up at all the training, and just the situation winds up and winds up. So I would be careful, but I would certainly, in the Man City match, be playing Balogun and some of the younger guys and Saliba, and get them out there. And you never know, they might play really well, and then suddenly it strengthens Arteta's hand.
Oh dear. Anyway, let me go into the live chat. I've got Effie Best who says, hello guys, and hello to you as well, Effie. Hope you're well. Stephen says, sorry for Arsenal. Yeah, well, like James said, Arsenal never learn. The club never learns. And it's not something that's happened under Unai Emery's tenureship. It's happened for the best part of 10 decades. What, 10 decades? A decade. The decay there at Arsenal. Buying the wrong players, sending them, at silly prices. It's just not now. It's been happening for the best part of 10 plus years. Even Chap says the assembled. And Santiago, ¿cómo estás? It says, good evening, Alex, James and Eltel. So good to hear from you. Always good. Where is the cake, Alex? Well, Santiago, my wife is bringing the cake now. What we're talking about? Well, because we've reached the 10,000 mark, 10,000 sub mark. So, it's not coming. It's not coming now. It'll be here tomorrow. So you got to tune in tomorrow. Hopefully, my wife will be joining me tomorrow on one of the live shows. And I kid you not. Don 1982 says, hello, Alex and all. Don 1 is downcast. He's given up on Arsenal, James. He's given up.
Well, it's understandable. It's understandable. You wonder where, as a club, we go from here. But I think something's got to happen somewhere along the line, because I personally don't think that reality will really kick in until we fill one of those relegation slots at some point along the season. Only then will reality start to kick in. Leeds were not too big to go down. Ipswich also went down, having finished, I think, 5th a couple of seasons before that. No team is too big to go down, and we haven't got a modern day Henry Norris, have we? After what happened in the outbreak of the Second World War, where Arsenal were reinstated on a vote, I believe, at the expense of our neighbours. And times have changed and football's changed, but you reap what you sow, and we just haven't learned. As I say, I've managed to accrue a lot of experience the last 4.5 years, speaking to lots of people at all different levels of professional football, and there's an awful lot that goes on. But one thing remains clear, which is timing is everything. Timing of an appointment, timing of the transfer, timing of selling, and we need to have someone custodians of the club, and we haven't got it. We used to have it. We used to have it in spades, but we don't have it now. And I think it's just simply the case of getting through this season, hopefully still in one piece, and then hopefully a bit of self-reflection, and then hopefully going again next season. But I worry with the fan base that we have, that a lot of them, they haven't really seen the tougher times which we've all seen. You imagine being reigning champions and getting knocked out the FA Cup by Wrexham. Struggling in Europe and being turned over by lesser sides in Europe, and that kind of thing. And everything that's good about this club, as I said, we used to have such high standards, and they're slowly slipping away, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Santiago goes on to say, dear Alex, James and Eltel, Feliz Navidad, Prospero Año y Felicidad. And that translates into what, Tel?
Happy birthday and prosper, is it?
Happy Christmas. A prosperous annual and happiness. Yeah, or New Year. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the song now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can never handle German. Anyway, the idea of the academy was to develop players into the first team. Unfortunately, the game has changed when the academy concept was formed. Teams are too heavily invested to change it. Terry or James.
Let James go in there. Go on.
I don't think the game's changed. I think the priorities of certain clubs have changed. I don't think the game's changed. And I think we are missing a trick. I mean, let's just say in an ideal world, right, we don't spend 30 million euros on Gabriel. We have the courage and the conviction to put Ballard and McGuinness together. And look what they're both doing at the moment in English football, which is very tough from the Premier League down. Individually, they're doing absolutely amazing things for their respective clubs. Can you imagine if we had the conviction to put them two together? That's Arsenal's back line sorted for a decade. And one of them would go on to be a captain. You know, in this day and age, you've got to have the courage to make decisions that maybe are not going to be popular. You know, maybe they're going to be very unpopular. But we've got to do it for the welfare of the club. I mean, there's far too many fans, unfortunately, that put their own agendas before the welfare of the club. And we are just in a situation now where the fan base, half of them wants Arteta to stay, the other one wants to give him a few games to see how he gets on. Who will we get as a replacement? Will the replacement get a tune out of those players for a certain amount of time before those players turn on that replacement? I mean, this time last year, Arteta had only just been appointed. And Arteta has received so much more space and time and compliments, more than Unai Emery ever received. Unai Emery reached the European final for the first time in 13 years, had a 22-match unbeaten run, and finished 5th in his first season. But Arteta has received 10 times the amount of praise that Unai Emery received. Unai Emery, by the way, won in Pamplona yesterday against Osasuna, and his team's now sitting 4th. Now, people will say, oh, we've got better players than Villarreal. Well, maybe, but Villarreal are understanding that their manager is showing them the way. And our players seem to think that their pay packets are the most important thing. Their own individual success is the most important thing, not the welfare of Arsenal Football Club. And I just think that, you know, we're just gonna have to get through the season in one piece. Terry sums it up really well when he said the club went for the cheapest option. Well, you reap what you sow. I mean, Terry also talks about Ancelotti. Ancelotti started out at Regina in Serie B. That's where Ancelotti started out life as a manager. And he went on to manage Juventus, went on to create a dynasty at Milan, managing Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid. And it all started for him at Regina. And it's a fantastically shrewd move by Everton. And we've gone for the cheapest option with no experience. And in the tough times, he has nothing to fall back on. And that remains a fact.
Yeah.
Ministry Society says, waste of money, Alba, Terry.
Well, you know, if you pay that kind of money, you certainly want to see more than you're currently seeing. But it's not. We aren't a one-man team, and anybody that is a one-man team isn't going to be doing any good. I was watching some footage today of the golden days under Wenger, and we played the ball through the centre of the park. Fabregas got the ball after a lot of interplay. I think it was against Bolton. We won 3-1, and the final goal, the ball was played in and out. We had Diaby playing in central midfield, lots of pinging to and fro. The ball came to Arteta. He turned and he played the ball through, and Carlos Vela, I think it was, scored a beauty, and it was the through ball. It was the through ball. When's the last time we've seen a really good through ball that a player can run onto without changing stride? So it's that kind of play we haven't seen. And Arteta was also in that team, actually. So he does know how that kind of game works, but we aren't doing it. And it's through a mismatch of buying. And I am worried now. I know we have trimmed down our backroom team, but I'm worried that, I mean, when we bought Willian, did we not know that Willian and Luiz caused all kinds of ructions in the Chelsea dressing room and were supposed to have been instrumental in getting rid of Conte? Surely when we look at players, you have to look at their character. In fact, I think George Graham said, I look at the character first. Brian Clough used to say, I look at the first touch a player has. And I think George Graham said, I look at the character, because it's no good shipping in, you know, tasteful, good players who are going to go behind your back and start fermenting trouble as soon as they hit problems. And personally, I would start dropping those players the moment they start letting me down, which they are doing. And they all carry this thing in their jersey now that kind of keeps an eye on the amount of mileage or kilometers they're sort of traveling, and they're looking at all those kind of stats or metrics. Well, I'm sure it must be glaringly obvious that we've got players out there that aren't moving, that aren't giving their best. So I would judiciously start including some of our younger players, give them their head. Balogun is bursting to play. I know there's a query about, is he talking to Liverpool currently? Is he going to be going elsewhere? But we've got to forget that, because we actually need goals now. And a guy like him against City might just turn the corner for us.
Oh, to be a gooner says the first thing to get rid of Willian, Xhaka, and 1-2 defenders we do not play. Maybe probably talking about, yeah. I'm not going to mention any more names. Ashton, the Bronze Duster, says, we don't need Partey and Gabriel being affected by German/Bundesliga faction and the League One French faction. Do you think there's a fraction in the squad, James?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think it's evident when you've got Louise and Willian, appearing to tap up Oscar, where Oscar is now linked to Arsenal in January. And are they running the club now? Is that their role at Arsenal now, to tap up players? Luis in his younger days had the reputation as being a joker, and a player that really helped the others in terms of mood and was really looked after players. But I think that he, along with Willian, I think they both naively think that they can finish their careers at Arsenal, then go and sign for Benfica, and then that's them set for life, basically. But it's very naive to think that you can plan a career like that. And going back to Balogun, Arsenal turned down an offer from Sheffield United in this summer's transfer window for Balogun. He must be thinking, why on earth did they turn it down if I'm not going to play? And he's linked with Liverpool, and it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up at Liverpool. And then it's like an open book. You'll have a fan base that will lament Balogun going to Liverpool. Oh, we should have done something. Oh, we should have done something. But yet these are the same ones that are busting a gut when Partey signs, that are doing cartwheels when Aubameyang signs, that are doing cartwheels when Gabriel signs. We've got to start to think about making a competitive squad, and to make a competitive squad, it takes an awful long time. It doesn't happen in the blink of an eye. And as I said, until a new owner comes in that's proactive, that wants to build the house back up brick by brick, including the cement, I can't see any significant progress. But we are reaping what we've sown. And as I say, from my point of view, it's just about getting through the season in one piece. And you think of the young players, for Balogun to have an offer turned down from Sheffield United. Of course, he wants to play for Arsenal, but then he may well be involved at Sheffield United. People seem to think that a move to a lesser club, in inverted commas, means that you're going down the drain. But they forget that when you're involved in a first team environment, it can actually help a player's development to be involved in the first team, to go away with the first team, to train with the first team, to be in and around those players and learn. It's also part of your development. And we're at the moment, I just see a lot of people clamouring as soon as the January transfer window is open and the checkbook comes back out again. Well, our wages are becoming unsustainable in the Premier League, and they will be completely unsustainable should the unthinkable happen and we are relegated to the Championship. Because if that happens, the bigger names that some fans literally fall over themselves to compliment, to big up, to literally put on a pedestal, those players will leave, and they will have the excuse of, it was written in my contract I could leave if we got relegated. And so I think certain fans will give them a free pass. But you have to remember, should the unthinkable happen, those players would be and remain partly responsible for the demise of Arsenal Football Club.
Those who are just watching now, I've got El Tel, the original Godfather, and I've also got James Rowe just talking about Arsenal. Yeah, Arsenal and some more Arsenal as well, and a little bit more of Arsenal, a sprinkling of Arsenal, and a little bit more of Arsenal. A terrible cake ingredients. Anyway, back into the live chat for the last time, I believe. Where were we? Oh, here we go. Udibi Laguna says, to be honest, seeing Arteta as a manager was a bit disappointing. I wanted someone like Klopp at the club leading the charge, but we get evening guy. Terry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't like the use of taking the mickey out of people if they don't speak language well. I mean, he spoke English far better than, as you found out earlier, than I have a hope of speaking Spanish. And so I don't think that's fair comment. But what is fair comment is maybe, in fact, we should really have got maybe somebody who was had a background in not just being a coach, but being a manager through the ups and downs that inevitably every manager meets. And I still have great belief in Arteta as a coach. And I've no doubt at some stage the man will make a good manager. Our problem is he's thrust himself, and we've given him the platform to thrust himself into the limelight. Let's not forget that he did a wonderful job at the end of last season. He found a system that worked, that made sure that our fast forwards had plenty of green space to sort of run into. He stopped leaking goals, and it's all gone wrong this season when he tried to turn us back into a 4-4-2, and it hasn't worked. And I would much prefer him to go back to a 5 at the back, 3 at the back, and two wing backs. But in the meantime, I don't think he's got much option now but to look at the players who have the kind of passion and drive that are going to get us out of this. And Xhaka won't. We all know that. William won't. And Luiz, albeit probably one of our better centre backs, I mean, this business of throwing his arms up and waving at other people and blaming them, that's not good enough. And I would be having a severe word with him. He may just feel that he hasn't got anybody else. But certainly a judicious use of the younger players is got to come. We've got a lot of matches coming up now. So get the younger players involved. Nelson has always looked a good player anytime I've seen him, a little bit injury prone. Get him out there instead of Willian on the right wing. And start selling. I mean, they should be doing this by now. They should have already been negotiating the sale of some of our players so that on 1st of January or in the first week, we can get, we can sell as many players that are not going to be of any use to us in the rest of the season. And I'm talking about not just players who are not skillful enough, but also the ones who are dispiriting, who are fed up. I think Arteta was quoted as saying, there's no such thing as the perfect, happy dressing room. And you'll always have people that are disappointed because they're not playing. Well, that's fine. That's fine. But he's kind of hinting that, yes, there probably are factions, and however much he does while he's training them and in team meetings, they can always go off home and phone each other up and complain and plot and hatch. Well, no, if I had a little vibe that was going on, I'd call the player out either on his own, or if it suited, I'd call him out in front of his teammates, and let's have it out in the open air. And if you've got guys that are doing that, they are traitors to the cause. And you won't win any war or any battle if you've got traitors.
Yeah. Tell, the documentary 89, when actually there's a part where Tony Adams is talking about how he felt like he was George Graham's voice in the changing rooms. So he would deal with the situations amongst the players there before it got to the manager. We don't have anybody like that at Arsenal, do we? A strong character. I'm not saying someone can be like Tony Adams, but a Tony Adams-esque
it's funny
leader
that,
there.
Yeah, George Graham did say to a journalist, I don't kick every ball. In fact, it's the players who kick the ball. So I set them up as best as I can. But at the end of the day, I've got to see them doing what I'm asking them to do on the field. And I was surprised when he made Holding captain. I would much prefer to have seen Tierney because he seems to embody the sort of spirit that I'd like to see. But yeah, apart from Tierney and Saka, who are playing fantastically well, there's nobody else that I see with an awful lot of passion. And certainly it's easy to pick out the players who are just going through the motions. And that's not good enough. When Arteta came in, he said, I want 110% from each player. And we're definitely not getting that. In fact, I think I said on an earlier podcast that I've always noticed when Arsenal start doing well, the standard of each player's performance goes up from maybe 100% up to 120. Now, if you've got players that are not working hard and they suddenly think, oh, I'm not really interested, then suddenly the 120 drops down to 80% and even lower. And you watch because everybody watch the next 2 or 3 games and take your eye off the ball from time to time and go and look at which players are moving into passing lanes. And it tells you straight away what's going on. Arteta's problem is he's running out of players other than a lot of young players who would fill that sort of role. But certainly, I know he's frightened. He doesn't want to. He said recently that he has big team meetings, Steve Round and so on, and Stuyvenberg. And they're probably saying to him, trust the senior pros. Well, I'm afraid a lot of those senior pros can't be trusted. Even our goalkeeper, who's standing at the back watching it all in front of him, he said, and we were all saying, screaming at the screen in the Everton match, we're passing too slowly. There's no vertical balls going through quickly. It's sideways. And I do believe there was one point at which Luis threw his hands up in the air when El Neni passed the ball back to him, instead of being on the half turn and playing it forward. And I know I do believe Edu did something similar. So there's an awful lot of arm waving going on and an awful lot of players not doing what they're told. There was another incident apparently where a free kick came and I think it was Willian decided to do something that wasn't what they were expected to do. They must have had a set play. And the other players looked quite surprised that he'd taken it upon himself to do the first thing that came into his mind. So if players are going to do that to you, you can call them out, but start dropping them. Dropping them, because otherwise it's like a poison that will seep through into some of the other players. Now, one player I would exonerate from that, because I think he's come on greatly this season, is Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And I think he would be an ideal midfielder. He said he wants to play in midfield. He was the one who won the penalty in the Everton match because he was bursting through into the box. So I want to see him in central midfield before any other name goes down.
Before I go into an interlude and give James an opportunity to talk about maybe some up-and-coming interviews, James, you and I, we don't like to see managers get sacked. How many transfer winners, realistically, do you think Arteta will need before he can change the sinking ship around?
3 to 4.
3 to 4.
3 to 4. And I know people are not going to like that.
Yeah.
But, it takes time in football. And first and foremost, when Unai Emery would say good evening or buenas noches, he was only being polite. And people need to remember that this is a man born in Hondarribia in Spain, who, when Valencia were in turmoil, got them into the Champions League, got Almeria promoted to La Liga for the first time in 24 years, won the Europa League with Sevilla 3 times on the bounce. It's difficult to even win it once. We haven't won a European trophy for 27 years. He won 3 in a row. And as I say, people, even at management level, our fans are only interested in names. The achievements that I've just reeled off that Unai Emery has achieved in his career, that nobody can take away from him, not a lot of people would be aware of what he's done, but I'm aware of what he's done. I also interviewed his former teammate and friend Imanol Diakes, who's managing in Cyprus, and he was telling me about the characteristics that Unai Emery has. I was also contacted by Villarreal this season, and they've asked me to remain patient regarding my request to speak to Unai Emery. So hopefully in the second half of this season, or maybe even next season, I'll be able to really find out what happened at Arsenal, hopefully interviewing Unai Emery in his mother tongue. So let's hope that can happen. But we've got to come away from this people need to be aware before Klopp turned up at Liverpool. In his first season, he lost in the Europa League final to Unai Emery. When Klopp, in his final season at Borussia Dortmund, they were near the relegation zone. They couldn't buy a win. After 18, 19 games, they were hovering literally around the relegation zone. But nobody talks about that now. Nobody talks about the work that was done at Mainz before that. It's only about, it's like a version of Pop Idol, really. If you look at the best managers in the world at the moment that are doing sterling work, you got to look at Ancelotti at Everton, Urs Fischer at Union Berlin. A very small club beating the likes of Dortmund. Giving Bayern Munich a torrid time. Erik ten Hag at Ajax has come on leaps and bounds, even though they're not as dominant as what they were in that respect. Arsenal fans would do well to cast the net wide and look about what's going on. Don't look and read what a fellow Arsenal influencer says. Go out and forge your own opinions. And it's like, for example, with my work with professional players and managers, every single interview I do it within the back of my mind. People who've never read my work before, they find out something they didn't know before. And that's something I like to kind of give to people. And, if they can find out something different, it kind of helps expand their knowledge on football as well.
Tell us about your interviews. Sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
What seems to be lacking is right at the very top of the club. We're owned by somebody who doesn't know a lot about football, who's bought us as an investment, and there isn't enough expertise on the Arsenal board. And what we need somewhere in there is some fresh blood, maybe David O'Leary, somebody like that that's been in the game, seen it as a player, seen Arsenal as a player, been a manager, been in a World Cup team, has seen the game from all angles, knows how the whole thing works, knows how transfers work in and out, has got a really broad vision. Because as I think James has said in previous podcasts, there seems a lack of vision. We've now got a rookie manager. We've got Edu, who's a rookie in terms of the European game, and Vinay, who's probably a rookie at everything. And apart from, figures. And it does it. This is one of the greatest clubs in the world. And we haven't got somebody steering the ship who's got all those years of experience under their belt. So I know we're going to have to push through to the end of the season, but I hope while that's all going on, the directors take a look at themselves and say, I know they're on a gravy train, but in the meantime, they really ought to be having some fresh blood, and ideally somebody like some fresh Arsenal blood that has been around, done the thing, knows the way the game plays. And you hear ex-players talking, and they're not given a look in. They're not helped out. I know Robert Pires has offered to just go along. But we don't see that continuity that in Liverpool, they always had the famous boot room and people came through and played for the club and then were trainers or coaches and then became managers. It was all a throughput of the same style. And we haven't. We seem to be lurching from, after Wenger, we've lurched in different ways. And as Alex and I have often said, we rated Emery. The guy was doing a good job. And we've now got back to the Emery situation now, where after an initial fillip, which all teams get normally when there's a new manager in, suddenly everybody's throwing their arms up and saying, oh, it's all going wrong. Well, the worst thing we could do, I think, is get rid of Arteta now. And I don't think we will. And we've got to push on with him. We've got to support him, keep it upbeat, blood a lot of the youngsters. And if 2 or 3 come off, great. Get them in there. And in the January transfer window, start shipping out all the dead wood.
Yeah. Let me go into the live comment, go as quickly as I can. And I want to hear from James, some interviews that James has been doing. I've got Ashley D, who says, hey up, power to the Gooners. And Cyril says, hello, Alex, and my man, Eltel and James. Arsenal being the 4th richest club in the world in 2001, the 9th richest club in 2019. At this rate, the sponsors will start reviewing their standings. Oh dear me. I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. But Muta White says, if Arteta survives this season, Arsenal will get better. I
Yeah,
agree. He just
yeah,
needs time. He needs time.
yeah.
I've got Theo Gunners who says, respect to you guys. Keep up the work. Thank you very much, Theo. I hope you subscribed. If you're not, I'm coming to get you. Ashley says, you were asking before why William is always being played. It could be because he and Edu have the same agent. In fact, 4 of our squad have the same agent. I do think that this should or shouldn't be allowed. Should be allowed? Shouldn't be allowed.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Shouldn't be allowed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Missing the hardcore players like Frank Mlinkertop. Oh my goodness. Yeah. God dear. Jules Eastman, my coach in South Africa. Wow, okay. They played for the Badge, sadly lacking today. The academy appreciates the small chances. Viva under 23s. That's a good comment, actually. Really good comment in the live chat, Cyril.
Very.
Something about the under 23s. I've been trying to follow them, and
Yeah.
so many Premier League clubs, if you're a member of the club, or you pay in for sort of membership, you can see your team's under 23 teams play. Arsenal don't do that. So if when we were playing Leicester the other day, the under 23s, if you were a member of the Leicester club, then you could go and watch them play Arsenal. And I've seen a few. I think I saw one against, was it Brighton there earlier on in the season? And you have to pretend to be a Brighton member. You know. But why don't Arsenal do that? They do it in retrospect. They show the games afterwards. Why don't we? And we've got some, as James was saying, we've got some cracking players. The one who took my eye was Cottrell. He's small. He's like Will Shearer, or got the same flame hair as Alan Ball, same stature as Wiltshire, but he's got a sweet left foot. He's a lovely midfield player. Plays lots of through balls. Aziz, we've all seen, wonderful first touch. You know, why don't they let us see it? Crazy.
Will M. Hooper says, I will keep repeating what I said since November 2019. You get what you pay for. We got an inexperienced coach. We get inexperienced results. It's simple logic. Job's too big for him. Clear as day. Dear me. James, do you want to tell us about your interviews?
Yes. Upcoming interviews include Naomi Hilhorst, who's viewed as one of the best prospects in the women's game here in the Netherlands. That one's released tomorrow. We'll also see an interview with Andrew Barrowman, who Birmingham City fans might remember. He was part of the squad when they came up and then promoted to the Premier League many moons ago. And upcoming interviews on the Secret Footballer will include Darren Young, manager of East Fife, and also Achlaf Naid, who had a spell playing in Malaga. So really interesting stories from all different levels. And I received some very interesting news today regarding my interviews for 2021. I'm very excited. I think it's the strongest start of 2020, strongest start of a year I will have ever known, especially in terms of the size of the people and the names I'll be speaking to. But I always say that every player and manager has a story to tell, regardless of level. And we're only 20 interviews shy of the 300th publication now. So very excited how things are going. And we just keep going. And it's very encouraging to see on the LinkedIn, for example, the likes of the FA and the Dutch FA and clubs looking. But I encourage those clubs as well. You know, it's nice that you're looking, but you can always give me a shout and say, "Hi, James, fancy this chat."
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. But I'm very proud of what's been done, and the correspondence I received today is just testament to that, really. And you know, it's been a great journey, and we just keep going, and really looking forward to the future.
Yeah. James, you know my prophecy. We've still got 10 days to go. We've still got 10 days to go, Terry.
We've
James.
still got 10 days to go. Yeah, it's been a great journey so far. As I say, I would so dearly love to say who they are. When we finish recording, of course, I'll let Terry know. But you have to remain professional at all times. You know, like today,
Absolutely.
I spoke to Connor Kirby, who plays for Harrogate Town. I also spoke to Lewis Page of Exeter, speaking about his time at West Ham and Charlton. And previous interviews in previous weeks with the likes of Tony Cottee and Ian Taylor, and it's just really, really good to be rewarded in such a sense. And roll on 2021, and be interesting to see what happens.
Brilliant. Let me go into a live chat just for the last time. I've just seen some. There's quite a few actually. If I went through all of them, we'll be here all day. Elaine Sharp, good evening to you. I hope you are well, my friend. William has never looked as if he wanted to play for us. If you can bear it, re-watch his welcome video.
He walks around with like a scowl on his face, as if somebody's really annoyed him, or he's got ingrown toenails or something. He just looks absolutely miserable. Doesn't want to touch the ball. Doesn't want to run into space.
Well, because he wanted to stay at Chelsea, didn't he? He didn't want to leave Chelsea. It's just the terms. Doesn't want to play for Arsenal. But anyway,
he wanted to stay. He wanted to stay in London on his terms, and Arsenal give him that.
Yeah. Mute White says Gabriel, Partey, Aubameyang, Maitland-Niles, Saka, Tierney, Bellingham are the backbone of this team. Get rid of the players that are needed, and it will get better. I completely agree with that. Just a few more before we are finished here. Again, there's just been so many guys. I'm not complaining. Thank you so very much. I've just seen the analytics. We've got just over 150 live viewers at any one time. Terry.
Hi. Not yet. And the thing is, we actually have swapped managers over the years. We had Terry Neal at one point, who was with Tottenham, and then he came to Arsenal. And then, of course, at the end of his time as a manager, George Graham went over to Spurs, and Herbert Chapman, I think, played fullback for Spurs as well at some point, if you go back in history. So it's not unknown for managers to swap clubs and to do well at Arsenal. So I'm not saying no, but I don't. At this stage, I think Pochettino wouldn't be happy picking. I was saying to someone recently, when you get somebody come in like Arteta, and he's got a club that he's inherited a lot of players that are basically dross, and are not only are they not great players, but they aren't really interested. Then it's like being in the middle of a card game, somebody in the middle of a card game or a chessboard game, and then the person thinking, well, I'm going to lose this. So you then step in and you've got a dodgy hand of cards, or you're playing a chess game and half the good pieces are gone. And then somebody says, go on, win the game. Well, it doesn't work like that unless you can start pulling aces from inside your sleeve. Then it's not going to work. And I feel that Arteta's like that. I know he's inexperienced, and it would break my heart to see him go, because I think he will in the future be a really good manager. But he's inherited a very poor team, and worse still, he's inherited a lot of poor attitudes, and it hasn't helped by getting Willian in there. And obviously he's got mates there, quite a few of them are from Brazil. They're pals. They're obviously going to talk to each other. And unfortunately, it all seems to be going. I'm not anti-Brazilian. It's my favourite music, by the way. But it's such a shame that he's inherited a club in change. And it's, as you said earlier, it's going to be several years, 2 or 3 years at least, before he gets his team out there.
Yeah. Here's one for you, James. The Assemble says, James, Arsenal have done the same with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. It doesn't really mean anything. Whatever Arsenal refuse a player a move.
Well, he was very close to Wolves, and that looked something that was going to happen. But I agree with Terry. I hope he gets played in the central midfield role, and and I think that he could go on to become a good player for Arsenal. But all this talk about a manager, first and foremost, a new owner. Have a new owner come in that wants to be a good custodian of this football club and build it up brick by brick, and only then talk about a new manager.
Yeah. I'll give the last shout to Elaine, who says, I can drive, but I can't drive a juggernaut. And essentially, that's what we've done with Mikel, handed him the keys to a huge juggernaut.
Yep.
Dearie me. Anyway, guys, we'll come to an end. Spot on an hour. I did say an hour, and we're in the hour.
Hang on.
LTL, quality stuff. Always
Love-
a pleasure. And like I said, the people seem to love you so much.
Well, you know what? I love Arsenal, and I like to be upbeat. I'm not one of those fans who enjoy moaning. And so I look, you know, whatever situation we're in, we keep it upbeat. If players are fighting you, you call them out, and after that, that's only 20% of it. The rest of it, you keep it upbeat, and you blood the young players. It's great. Every time I talk to James, I learn so much. His knowledge of the game around Europe is par excellence, and I would encourage people to have a look.
Merci.
His sort of his email, or whatever you call it, your www. Your handle is written down there, and there's some fascinating interviews, and we learn so much from regular players that are playing in regular teams in regular leagues. So brilliant.
Yeah. And of course, James Rowe.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much indeed for the lovely words, Terry. I always say that every player has a story to tell, and it's been fantastic to kind of educate. Always having one eye on educating people when you're releasing, because you're dealing with professionals at all times. And even when I spoke to Van der Donk of the women's team, you know, we spoke about her time in the Netherlands and what she achieved at international level. Also, her Dutch compatriot in the women's team at Arsenal, Jill Lord. Although I spoke to Jill when she was a Bayern Munich player, you know, it's always nice to kind of, you know, everybody gets treated the same. There's no hairs and graces. The only thing that changes is the language upon which the interview is taking place. It's either done in English, Dutch, or Spanish, depending on where the player is from or where the manager is from. But yeah, very, very excited about what 2021 will bring.
Yeah, there's just one more actually. I'm just going to pull this one up, and it's from Albert JTV. It says, great insight, James, into Unai Emery and Klopp. I agree. Sections of Arsenal fan base need to widen their thinking and stop obsessing over fashionable names in regards to potential recruitment. That's quality.
No. Yeah, and
James?
that also comes back to having that also comes back, if I can quickly say, to having the courage to stand up and give your opinion. Like yesterday, did you see the cross from Mark Albrighton for the goal yesterday? Mark Albrighton is an amazing player, a Premier League winner, an amazing footballer. How on earth he's not been capped by England, I will never know. But Gooners tell me with a smile on their face he's not good enough to play for Arsenal, which is absolute rubbish.
And on that note, we are finished. We are finished. Those of you who are watching Cannon Foy TV for the first time, make sure it's not the last time. You got to subscribe. If you don't subscribe, you're going to miss out. And I don't want you to miss out. So subscribe. You've been told. We've got LTL, the original Godfather. I'll send him after you. Anyway, guys. Anyway. I will be back tomorrow morning, giving some more live news around 11 a.m. I think maybe Tel, are you with me tomorrow morning? Are you on the show?
I think so. Yeah, you asked me.
Okay. All right. In the evening show, I might have a special guest in my wife talking Arsenal and then maybe a little bit of Colombian football as well. So, guys, you need to make sure you stay tuned. And if by chance you've been wondering who or what you've been listening to, well, you've been listening to Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans.